One more. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Roger Paul, and tonight we are going to start a new paper from the Urantia book. This is paper 51, The Planetary Atoms. And we go over here. That starts on page 580 in the original book, or paper 5101 and all the rest of them. So let's say a little prayer and we'll get started. Father, thank you for bringing us together tonight, and thank you for this opportunity to share your wonderful revelation with the world. Pray that you open our hearts and minds and help us remember some of this and digest it so that we can share it with our friends and family, and that'll benefit us into the future. We thank you for the opportunity to do this. We thank you for having this part of your will for our lives. We say this in the name of your son, Michael, Jesus of Nazareth. Amen. 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 Well, that's weird. I'm way in the middle here tonight for some reason. Oh, I didn't set pin this to the first page, did I? Into first screen. Here we go. There we go. That's what I need to do. Ready, dear? You can do the first. Oh, I guess I better change the slide. Oh, just call me Rattlebrain. Come on. There you go.
Oh, much better.
Yeah.
Easier to read.
Might be able to read that, huh? Okay. Go for it, dear. Let me put mine on.
Okay. Paper 51, The Planetary Atoms. During the dispensation of a planetary prince, primitive man reaches the limit of natural evolutionary development. And this biological attainment signals the system sovereign to dispatch to such a world the second order of sonship, the biological uplifters. These sons, for there are two of them, the material son and daughter, are usually known on a planet as Adam and Eve. The original material son of Satania is Adam, and those who go to the system worlds as biological uplifters always carry the name of this first and original son of their unique order.
Okay. Get some sound back here. Okay, right off the bat, there's something I want to point out to y'all, which is very interesting. The first time I read this, I thought that is really strange. Notice here it said that a system sovereign dispatches the second order of sonship, right? The second order of sonship. You got that? Sonship. All right. And then it says there are two of them. You see that?
Mm-hmm. Material son and daughter.
A material son and daughter. So they're calling the material daughter, or the Eve's, sons.
Yes.
You see that?
Yeah.
You see that? Isn't that odd? Doesn't that kind of strike y'all?
Could be a language, situation.
Yeah, they could have interpreted
It might have been, or maybe they did that on purpose, that they consider all sons or daughters of the local universe, whether they're male or female in orientation, are still called sons.
Well, Jesus said to become conscious that you're a son of God.
That's right.
That's true.
Even the lady folks.
Even the lady folks, that's right, are sons of God. Okay, so I thought that was really interesting that they call them that, and they're always called Adam and Eve, the very first son that Michael creates for the very first system in the universe, or for the first son that they create for every system of his local universe, is always called Adam. Okay, that's important too, because all of the Adam and Eves assume the name of the first son and first daughter. So all of them are called Adam and Eve, regardless of what their names were before. Okay, so when when an atom comes to the planet, a order, you could call it the order of atom or a material order. They always use the name atom, just like a planetary prince is called a planetary prince, right? Regardless of what their names are. Make sense? So I wanted to bring that out, show y'all that, and they're always called biological uplifters. And why is that? Because they always bring the violet blood to mix their blood with the planet's inhabitants, and they do this through their children, to mix the planet's inhabitants with the violet blood as a biologic uplift from a certain part of barbarian animals to a more civilized type of being. Okay, so that's why they're called biological uplifters. And this biological uplifting always improves the DNA of the planet. And it's really interesting, even on things like the ancient aliens, they proved that 37,000 years ago, we had a change in our DNA. Did y'all know that? So it's documented that this has happened. Okay. There's, for some reason, 37,000 years ago, there was a change in our biological DNA, and it was brought about by Adam and Eve. Okay.
So I have a
Brought
couple,
about by what?
Adam and Eve,
Was that
Okay.
just 37,000 years ago?
37,000 years ago. Yeah.
Oh,
Doesn't seem that long ago.
Just seems like yesterday, didn't it? Yeah, Rodney, what was your question?
um, two questions.
Yeah.
Where did they come from? And how are they transported?
Okay, we're going to get to that
Okay.
in this paper. Do you want to go ahead and me tell you, or you want to wait
No.
till it tells
No.
us in the paper? Okay. All right. They actually came, those little things you buy at Walmart, the Pillsbury Doughboy things, where you open the can and the biscuits are inside.
Yeah,
That's where they came from.
makes sense.
I'm joking.
It doesn't make sense.
I can't help myself.
Sometimes it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Actually, we're in this paper, it tells you all about where they came from and what type of sons they were and all that. So let's wait and let's just go through the paper. I can tell you, but then I'll kind of spoil the surprise of the paper. So, all right. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Pam, would you take the next one?
these sons are the material gift of the Creator Son to the inhabited worlds. Together with the planetary prince, they remain on their planet of assignment throughout the evolutionary course of such a sphere. Such an adventure on a world having a planetary prince is not much of a hazard, but on an apostate planet, a realm without a spiritual ruler and deprived of interplanetary communication, such a mission is fraught with grave danger.
So normally, this wouldn't be such a big deal for Adam and Eve to go out to a planet on a normal planet that's not in rebellion. It would be a fairly straightforward process, because the planetary prince and his staff would prepare the Garden of Eden for them, and they would help them along and getting them started in their process of what they're supposed to do. But that's not the case on our planet, because Caligastia in 60 of the 100 that came with him rebelled, right? So it created a real mess here. So 200,000 years ago, when the rebellion happened, Caligastia and the 60 volunteers rebelled with a ton of the staff of the planet. Now, what am I talking about? The staff of the planet, they don't spend a lot of time on this, but hundreds of thousands of angelic corps rebelled. all, different orders of angels, like the sixth orders of angel and the fifth order of angels. There's a certain amount of angels that rebelled with Caligastus. So it literally put the whole planet in a upheaval. Okay, so that meant when the Adam and Eve came 150,000 years after the rebellion had started, or 160, I guess it was, after the rebellion started, the only thing that was still stable was the fact that it had the 12 Melchizedek receivers that were in charge of the planet. And it also had Van and Amadon, who were part of the original staff, and they stayed loyal. And they stayed here on the planet until Adam and Eve came. Okay, so literally everything, the physical beings of the planet that were loyal was very, very few. There was like 132 people, most of whom were women that stayed with Van and Amadon when everybody else rebelled. And then the other 39 of the original volunteers stayed for a certain amount of time, but they didn't stay the 150,000 years like Van and Amadon did. Okay, so by the time Adam and Eve came, the planet had been in rebellion, over 150,000 years. So they inherited quite a mess. So the first thing Caligastus tried to do, he tried to upset the process with Adam and Eve immediately when Adam and Eve got here, that from the very beginning. And he's the one from the Bible they kept referring to as the snake, right? That talked to Eve, right? So that's where that legend came from. All right. So this is kind of interesting how dangerous it was for them to come to the planet and start their mission on a planet that was in such an uproar and mess, really. Rodney, would you take the next one?
Yes. Although you cannot hope to know all about the work of these suns on all the worlds of Stania and other systems, other papers depict more fully the life and experiences of these interesting pair, Adam and Eve, who came from the core of the biologic uplifters of Jerusalem to upstep the Urantia races. While there was a miscarriage of the ideal plans for improving your native races, still, Adam's mission was not in vain. Urantia has profited immeasurably from the gift of Adam and Eve, and among their fellows, and in the councils on high, their work is not reckoned as a total loss.
So among the brothers and sisters of the Adam and Eves, they believe that some of the biological blood of Adam and Eve was spread. Okay, so it wasn't a total loss. Of course, it's not anywhere near what it would have been if they would have stayed on course, and the world would have gotten the uplifting of the millions of children of Adam and Eve that would have added to that, plus the social and psychological benefits of having a material son and daughter on the planet, which we didn't have after that, right? So we lost all of that benefit also. But the thing that I think hurt us the worst is we didn't get enough of the violet blood to take care of things like disease and things like that, mental illness and all these things that are still around on this planet that would have been eradicated if Adam and Eve had fulfilled their mission. Okay, so by now, most of the defective people on the planet, the ones that cause most of the problems on the planet, would have been totally eradicated by the process of Adam and Eve. Okay, so we would have been improved, in other words. But according to them, it wasn't a total loss. All right, so Now we're going to answer Rodney's question. Right? All right. Actually, I better read tonight too, since there's only a few of us. Origin, nature of the material sons of God. The material or sex sons and daughters are the offspring of the Creator Son. The universal Mother Spirit does not participate in the production of these beings who are destined to function as physical uplifters on the evolutionary world. So the material sons are a creation of just Michael. Okay, they are not a creation of Adam, of Michael and the local universe Mother Spirit like most other beings are.
Or
Okay.
Gabriel.
Or Gabriel, right? So the material sons, the sex creatures of the who are the material sons, are the let's see, third order of sonship down. You know, you have the Melchizedeks, you have the Verondadeks, you have the Lanadondeks, and then come the material sons and daughter, which are the Adam and Eves. And after those comes what? The life carriers and the midwayers. Okay, so the material sons and daughters are all created directly from Michael himself. Okay, now we have to think about it like this. They are not that much different than we are, because they're material sex creatures. They reproduce beings just like we do. Okay, so it makes a big difference. Yeah, Pam.
So I was wondering, I thought that Adam and Eve's and their children were tall.
They are. We're going to find that out here in a
Well,
minute.
then how does a woman, consummate with a small man?
Step ladder.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm joking. They did. I guess what's that old saying? If you're not upright and you're lying down, I guess you can do just about anything, right? Just about a lot of couples are the wife is real tall and the husband's real short, and vice versa. So it worked the same. And not only that, Adam and Eve originally, when they came from their planet and they're on their planet, they're 8 to 10 feet tall. Okay. Now, when they reproduced them on this planet, they ended up being about 8 foot tall. But on the original planet, they were 8 to 10 feet tall and probably pretty close to 10 feet. All right. But when we're going to talk about all this when we go through the materialization and the detailed materialization and them being transported by seraphim. They can't transport themselves through the universe. They have to be transported by seraphim. And in order to do that, they have to be dematerialized. So the life carriers have to do that. So they have to dematerialize them, put them inside the seraphim, transport to the planet, and then they have to be rematerialized by the life carriers. And in that process, I guess they instill part of the DNA of the planet itself so that they're compatible with the beings of the planet. And they probably have to do that on every single planet. It's different for every planet, right? Because we're an experimental planet. Yeah, right.
When you say dematerialized, you mean like on Star Trek?
Pretty much, yeah. They have to literally take the life force that makes them who they are, take it out of their material body, just like if we die, right? Think about it this way. When you die, what happens? The material body ceases to function, does it not? So they take that essence of who you are, your soul, your personality, that which makes you who you are, and they put it in a different vessel, a different body. So they do this exactly the same way for the Adam and Eves when they go to the planet, because they can't transport a material body in a seraphim at high speed because it would incinerate it.
Right.
who has brought the material body for them to rematerialize in?
Probably the life carriers. All right, but it says they're rematerialized just as they were on the system headquarters. Okay, so whether they take the DNA of where they came from or however that works and they encapsulate it in the life carriers carries it to the planet, I don't know. They don't say. They don't get that specific. But they have to have the same material essence as they were on Satania. Okay. So when they're rematerialized on the planet, they're really exactly like they were before they were dematerialized, with the exception of the fact that because they're coming to this specific planet, they have to make sure that their DNA is compatible with our DNA. And that's probably when they modify the DNA to make it compatible with us. Right, because they're going to be what's called the biologic uplifters. And for them to biologically uplift us, their essence has to be compatible with us. So when they reproduce when their children reproduce with the local inhabitants of the planet, it's got to be compatible. Does that make sense? And that's why they know that we've had a tweak in our DNA 37,000 years ago, because all the creatures that were here before that did not have this difference in DNA that all people had after that point. Does that make sense?
Did you hear that or read it? Yeah.
It's
Where
from
did you?
it's from the Urantia book.
Oh, it's in there. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I heard that originally on Ancient Aliens. They've proven this scientifically. All right. So this is a well-known fact for years now, that our DNA changed 37,000 years ago. But it's also in the Urantia book because of the biological uplifting. But they don't know on Ancient Aliens or anything, all this scientific data, why the DNA was changed. You just know it was changed.
I see.
Okay. Now we know from reading the Urantia book it was changed because of Adam and Eve. All right. Because they still live in the dark ages and think Adam and Eve was 6,000, 8,000 years ago. Okay. Rather than when they actually were here. Okay. I guess I treaded kind of heavy on that, didn't I? All right. This is something that Rodney just asked. Where did the material sons and daughters come from? Okay. So here are the other sons of God. All right. Starting with the Melchizedeks, the Lananondeks, the Verondadeks, and the life carriers. But we have one more because we have what? The Adam and Eves, and they're part of this order of local universe sonship. The difference being that Adam and Eve's are material sons and daughters, where the previous ones, these, let me go back one,
Spiritual.
were spiritual, right? Or not spiritual, but local universe sons and daughters. Hang on. Oh, I hit the wrong key here, trying to go back. These are not material sons and daughters. Okay. The Melchizedek sons, the Lananondek sons, the Verondadek sons, and the life carriers, these are what we would call descending sons of God. Okay. They're not considered material sons and God. They have a material body, but it's not anything like the material sons and daughters, the Adam and Eve's. These would be more of like a spiritual, borderline spiritual or Urantia type body. They have a body that's created specific for their order. The highest type would be the Melchizedeks, right? The lowest type would be the life carriers and the midwayers. The midwayers aren't on here, but they're part of this descending sons of God. Okay. So That's the difference between their order and the material order, which is the Adams and Eves. Okay. And these were created by Michael himself. Okay, let's go on. Diane.
I just wanted to say that when I was at a grocery store several years ago, a woman walked in and she must have been 7 or 8 feet tall, and it just took my breath away.
Yeah.
Do you remember
Wow.
that, honey? That's a long time ago.
Was she
And,
white?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, she was light colored. She wasn't, yeah. And but I couldn't tell you, I couldn't, I just was just stunned. I think I stopped in my footsteps and just was having a hard time breathing because she was so
Especially for a woman.
yeah, yeah. So,
It's gonna, let me turn this back on for just a second. For later on in this paper, we're gonna find out that the colored races, some of them, there was a whole race of giants that were basically the green men and the orange men. Okay, they all disappeared. The green men and the orange men were all over 8 foot tall.
Wow.
Okay, they call them a race of giants, but they all were conquered, amalgamated with the other races. And the closest to them was the blue race, which disappeared also. The blue race amalgamated into the white race. Okay, which is kind of interesting because the black race in present day was shorter than all of these people. And now in the present age, we have more tall black people than we do any other race,
Yeah.
which is kind of interesting, right?
So we just shrank.
Yeah. And there's a lot of
the material order of sonship is not uniform throughout the local universe. The creator sun produces only one pair of these beings in each local system. These original pairs are diverse in nature, being attuned to the life pattern of their respective systems. This is a necessary provision since otherwise the reproductive potential of the atoms would be non-functional with that of the evolving mortal beings of the worlds of any one particular system. The Adam and Eve who came to Urantia were descended from the original Satania pair of material sons.
Okay, this is real important that we understand this. The material order of suns are unique for their local system. Now, why would that be? Because each system has a different type of populace of mortals. Okay, so a system outside of Satania, the human beings, the mortals, may look totally different than we do. Okay, so their Adam and Eve would be more along the DNA reproductive potential of that system itself. So each system has its own life pattern for that respective census system, according to what types of beings the life carriers project to create in that system. Okay, so all the Adam and Eves from system to system are going to look different, aren't they?
Yeah.
Because all the humans are going to look different from system to system.
Well, even different cultures look
Even,
different.
yeah.
You know,
yeah.
different sizes, different.
What would be a good a good example of that would be what we consider aliens, right? The grays or the that sort of thing. Those beings are of a different physical stature than we are. So if they had an Adam and Eve that went to their planet, that Adam and Eve would be more along the line of what they look like. Does that make sense?
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay, so depending on what was projected for that particular system, that's the type of beings they would have. Make sense?
Yes.
All right. So each one of them are kind of unique in that sense. They do the same function. They do the same job. It's just they're going to be different depending on what system they came from. Right? Okay. Pam, would you take the next?
Material suns vary in height from 8 to 10 feet, and their bodies glow with the brilliance of radiant light of a violet hue. While material blood circulates through their material bodies, they are also surcharged with divine energy and saturated with celestial light. These material suns, the Adams, and the material daughters, the Eves, are equal to each other, differing only in reproductive nature and in certain chemical endowments. They are equal but differential, male and female, hence complemental, and are designed to serve on almost all assignments in pairs.
Because they're reproductive.
Yeah.
They're reproductive beings, right?
I wish I could see them, that sounds
Yeah.
really beautiful.
Yeah, and it's interesting that even after they come to the planet, as long as they're still encircuited in the system circuits, they still glow with this violet hue. Okay, so the example of that too is, after Adam and Eve had been here, I forget when they were defaulted, about 100 years after they were here. After they defaulted, they lost their violet hue. Why would that be? Because they were unencircuited with the local universe circuit when they defaulted. Okay, so they would lose that system circuit, and that would make them two things. Number one, they weren't in the circuit any longer. So number two, they wouldn't live indefinitely. They would start to degenerate over time. Okay, as long as they were encircuited and ate of the tree of life, once a year or so, they would all regenerate and they would stay alive indefinitely. But when they got outside the circuit, that stopped happening. Now, a good example of that too is this. The children of Adam and Eve, when Adam and Eve defaulted, the children themselves that were adults had to make a decision whether they were going to stay on the planet with their mother and father, or they would be taken back to Satania. Why is that? Because they were encircuited. Okay, so once the parents became unencircuited, then the children would become unencircuited too. So the celestial government of the planet of, the system government, Satania, would require them to be taken back to Satania. They could choose to stay, but they would die a normal life just like every other human would. Does that make sense? Now, you say, well, if they died, that means they wouldn't come back? No, they would go just like we do. They would be given a thought adjuster. They would, when they died, they would be reawakened on the mansion worlds and go through the same process that we do. Okay, so
They would change into
mortals. They immediately become ascending sons of God and be mortal. They would no longer be biologic uplifters any longer. Right? Make sense? That would be the children of Adam and Eve. So once Adam and Eve stepped outside their purvey and defaulted, they lost their violet hue. And you can imagine what that would do to the local tribes. They've been used to seeing them with this hue, all this time they were there, and suddenly they were considered to be in disfavor. So that would affect the attitude of the local tribes towards them because they had defaulted on their mission.
Roger, for their children to uplift the races of Urantia,
Yeah.
wouldn't the children have to be encircuited?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When it first happened, they were still encircuited, Rodney. But
Correct.
That's why they had to make a choice after, everything takes time. So up to the point where they had to make that decision, they were taken away in math. We'll read this when we read the papers on Adam and Eve. When
Right.
when they were taken away en masse. So they had to make a decision right then and there whether they would go back or they would stay.
But I
All of
guess
them.
I can rephrase what I'm saying is once the children that stayed, if because they wouldn't be in the circuit,
Any longer.
how could they uplift us?
They would still have all the necessary DNA and everything like that to pass that on to the next generation.
Okay.
Okay. It would become from generation to generation to generation, more and more dispersed and more less. Okay. So that's basically,
Diluted.
yeah, it's diluted. That's basically why they say that we did get some benefit from the biologic uplifting of Adam and Eve. The trouble is, it was Adam and Eve themselves well, mostly Adam, that started having children, mating with the natives so that he could pass on as much as his blood as he could because they defaulted, and so
Correct.
his children would not be around to be able to proceed and do what they were supposed to do. But even though that's the case, it's been documented that this change in our DNA happened 37,000 years ago. So even though it got less and less and less and less over time, there is a point and when all our DNA started changing, and that was when Adam was here. Okay, so it's been getting less and less and less. And that's why, too, the benefits of the violet blood was not that effective on us, because by the time 2 or 3 generations went by, almost all the benefits for the disease and all the other things had been eradicated because it was too diluted. The whole point of Adam and Eve having 1,000,000 children before they started mixing with the races was the fact that the violet blood would be strong enough to make a huge change in the population. And because there wasn't that much of it, the change was not that significant. See the difference?
Yes.
I do remember hearing about the man that never grew older. He was it wasn't an author, but he did editing of books. Do you remember that?
No.
Yeah, he was a very nice looking man, but but they said that he never got older. And he always had the same look at him, generation after generation after generation.
I wonder if that was some sort of biologic quirk from the time of Adam and Eve.
Yeah, so I was thinking.
Yeah, may have been. Okay. Let's go on. There's something else on this I was wanting. I wanted to make a point here on these material sons and daughters are equal to each other, differing only in reproductive nature. So even the sons and daughters, the material sons and daughters, are considered on equal level ground with one another as material sons and daughters. One is not over the other type thing, right?
Dominant.
Dominant, right. Okay, let's see who's next.
I think I am.
I don't know.
Okay, go ahead, Rodney.
The material sons enjoy a dual nutrition. They are really dual in nature and constitution, partaking of materialized energy, much as do the physical beings of the realm, while their immortal existence is fully maintained by the direct and automatic intake of certain sustaining cosmic energies. Should they fail on some mission of assignment, or even consciously and deliberately rebel, this order of sons becomes isolated, cut off from connection with the universe source of light and life. Thereupon, they become practically material beings, destined to take the course of material life on the world of their assignment and compelled to look to the universe magistrates for adjudication. Material death will eventually terminate the planetary career of such an unfortunate and unwise material son or daughter.
So as soon as they default on their job or make a conscious or deliberate rebellion, they stay within the circuit. But once they've done that, they're cut off, just like all rebels. Okay. So, and that's exactly what happened with our Adam and Eve. Now, what eventually happens after you do that is you die a natural death, just like we do. Okay. And that's what they're talking about, the magistrates for adjudication. They have to go through adjudication just like we do. When they die, they have to be judged according to their life and determine whether they're capable of going on, if they deserve to go on, just like we do. So they become just like us. The wages of sin is what?
Death.
That's right. All right. I'll take the next one, I guess. An original or directly created Adam and Eve are immortal by inherent endowment, just as all other orders of local universe sonship. But a diminution of immortality potential characterizes their sons and daughters. This original couple cannot transmit unconditioned immortality to their procreated sons and daughters. Their progeny are dependent for continuing life on unbroken celestial synchrony with the mind. Intellectual synchrony with the mind gravity circuit of the spirit. Since the inception of the system of Satania, 13 planetary atoms have been lost in rebellion and default, and 681,204 in the subordinate positions of trust. Most of these defections occurred at the time of the Lucifer rebellion. So 13 atoms went in default and 681 of their progeny went into default. Okay?
Because they don't have
thought
a
adjusters.
thought adjuster.
Yeah.
Looks like it would be
Yeah.
simple to
Default.
go into default.
Yeah. But it's interesting here. They do mention that they cannot transmit this unconditioned immortality to their sons and daughters, right? But as long as their sons and daughters stays within this intellectual synchrony with this mind circuit, they can go on almost indefinitely.
As long as they eat from the tree of life.
That's right. That's right. Just like their mother and father. But as soon as they default, it's all bets are off and they're just like humans again, right? Or not again. That's when they become human. All right. Diane, I think you're up.
While living as permanent citizens on the system capitals, even when functioning on descending missions to the evolutionary planets, the material sons do not possess thought adjusters, but it is through these very services that they acquire experiential capacity for adjuster indwellment in the Paradise Ascension career. These unique and wonderfully useful beings are the connecting links between the spiritual and physical worlds. They are concentrated on the system headquarters, where they reproduce and carry on as material citizens of the realm, and whence they are dispatched to the evolutionary worlds.
So when they're created, they are not created for right off the bat like we are for receptions of thought adjusters. So when they're on a system capital, they don't receive thought adjusters at age 5, right?
Right.
It's only when they come to a planet, a normal mortal planet, do they qualify to get thought adjusters. Make sense? So you can see why it's important they stay to their job and that sort of thing. Now, when they finished if they stay loyal and they finish their job on the planet, at that point, when they leave the planet, they automatically get thought adjusters to go on through the mansion world process, right?
There's no sin on their original planet.
No,
No,
no.
there's probably evil, but not sin.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say there's evil possibility, deciding evil. Unlike our planet, that evil is all, it's everywhere. You can default into evil very, very easily, Well, I would think more on the system capitals, it's more like light and life, where your world is pretty much perfect and your surroundings are pretty much perfect. So you would almost have to make an effort to decide evil, right?
Correct.
You think of it that way, because when they talk about the system, by the time you hit the system capital, you've totally eradicated the mark of the beast, so that you have very little tendency to choose evil or default, right? Either one. I think it's interesting that that you asked that too, Rodney, because I was reading something today. We were both listening to something today, and it said in there that evil does not exist according to God the Father. Okay. And to understand that God is all good, beauty, truth, goodness, and all this. This is the essence of God. Evil does not come into the picture because to God, evil itself is not real. It's not reality.
Well, isn't evil is just ignorance of God?
Yeah, it's cosmic insanity, basically. Okay, when you think of evil, you're going against that which is the way the cosmos function is set up according to God the Father. Okay, so when you choose something evil, you're choosing non-reality, because what you're choosing is not real in the cosmos. There is no such thing as an evil that's equal to goodness.
Yeah.
There can't be, because God's personality does not have evil in it. And it's really interesting, because when we start to do the papers on universe reality again, one of the interesting parts of that is a part I put in that Jesus is talking about how the universe and God the Father does not have capabilities of untruth or evil, either one. So it's impossible for God to be non-truth or evil. And if that's the case, then the concepts that we develop as barbarians about God and this whole atonement idea and that sort of thing, all these things are non-real. So the fear of God is really a non-real entity within itself. Okay, because there are no such things as evil in God's universe. The evil that comes about is from man's mind and his own imagination. So when the Bedouins started to fear God and set up their whole religion around the fear of God and sacrifice and things like this, the whole concept was built upon an error of thought. You see that? From the very beginning. And Jesus talks about this in this paper. But anyway, let's go on. This one I went through. Let's go on to the next one. Who's up next?
Me.
Okay, Pam?
Unlike the other created sons of planetary service, material order of sonship is not by nature invisible to material creatures like the inhabitants of Urantia. These sons of God can be seen, understood, and can, in turn, actually mingle with the creatures of time, could even procreate with them, though this role of biologic upliftment usually falls to the progeny of the planetary atoms.
Well, this makes sense that if they're material sons and daughters, that we could see them, right? They're
Correct.
material, just like we are material. And normally the job of biological uplifting and mixing with the natives is not the job of the planetary Adams and Eves, right? It's for their children, their progeny. All right. So, but they can be seen and understood. So this makes them very valuable as a connection to the planetary princes and their staff that's supposed to already be here. Okay, so the sons and daughters of God, the material sons and daughters of God, is the connection link between mortals and the non-mortal staff of the planetary prince. Because the barbarians, the people that were coming to the garden couldn't see the angels. They couldn't see the midwayers. They couldn't see the planetary prince. Now they could see the beings that they took the DNA from, and they could also see the Kallikasha 100. Why was that? Because they were given physical bodies derived from the DNA of the local inhabitants. So they could see them, but they couldn't see the rest of the staff. So you can see why when we lost Adam and Eve, we lost the connection to the planetary prince and the whole local system government of the planet. That makes sense? All right. So it's a big deal when something like this happens, any way you look at it. Okay, we got one more paragraph before we change this to a new. Let's get one more in here. All right. Rodney, would you take this one?
Yes. On Jerusalem, the loyal children of any Adam and Eve are immortal, but the offspring of a material son and daughter procreate subsequent to their arrival on an evolutionary planet are not thus immune to natural death. There occurs a change in the life-transmitting mechanism when these sons are rematerialized for the reproductive function on an evolutionary world. The life carriers designedly deprive the planetary atoms and Eves of the power of begetting undying sons and daughters. If they do not default, an Adam and Eve on a planetary mission can live on indefinitely, but within certain limits, their children experience decreasing longevity with each succeeding generation.
And this is where the legends of the children of Adam came about, from them living hundreds of years and that sort of thing, right? Because their progeny, the children of Adam and Eve, lived for long periods of times before they passed, right? So you had, Methuselah and all these other, descendants of Adam and Eve that lived long, long, long lives, okay? But they weren't immune completely to death because they weren't encircuited any longer. The life carriers takes out that possibility when they put in the reproductive function. They take away the function of immortality, right? Just like when we become immortal, when we die, they take away the reproductive function of us. It works both ways, right? So when you get to the mansion worlds, you no longer have a reproductive functionality any longer. Make sense? Don't need it any longer. All right. Now, that brings us to the transit of the planetary atoms. We're going to take this up on next time. All right.
My other question.
Okay, go ahead.
No, that's my second question. How they transport it.
Oh, okay. We'll get into that. Can you keep that idea till next week, next Tuesday? We'll go through that. Great link. All right. Okay. Let's have a little prayer tonight and then we'll quit for tonight. Would someone else like to pray since I've been talking all night? Volunteers?
I guess I could.
Okay, I'll pray. Father, thank you for bringing us together. I pray that you'll watch over each and every one of us in these breaks between our lessons. We thank you for opening our hearts and minds and allowing some of this information in for us. And what a blessing we have in just having this information in our lives here on this planet. So we know what to expect, know what's coming, and makes our life so much easier on this world too. We thank you for this information. We thank you for Michael, your son, and we thank you for our local universe Mother Spirit who helps us so much. We say this in the name of your son, Michael, Jesus of Nazareth. Amen.
Amen.
And thank you everyone that comes to see us every week. And we will see you again next time. Let me stop the Facebook here. If I can figure out where the Facebook stops.
This is a very interesting topic to me.
It
Yes.
is. It's a good one. It really is. Let me see. That's really funny. We change these things around so much, I can't even figure out how to stop the recordings anymore. This one I know because I use it every day.